How do you navigate the racial humor that you have in your set, especially in days like today where everyone's kind of like uptight about certain things?
You know, you live and learn. You try what you feel comfortable with, and you see if it works. And if it does, then great, you keep it. If it doesn't, then you're like, oh, sorry, move on. Like that's kind of where we're at right now. So it's unfortunate, because I feel like comedians have always been the ones that get to hold up a mirror to society and say, hey, this is what I see. But now we even have to like hold up a mirror, but also like dress it up. Like, this is what I see, kind of. But if you don't like it, sorry about that. Let me.
But have we reached a turning point, do you think, in like the past year? Do you think that comedy's kind of coming back to just let them say whatever they want? And
no. I mean, I don't see it. I still see, people make jokes and then they're fired from their shows or
Have you
whatever.
ever had an experience like that over anything that you said?
No, I haven't. I mean, I definitely have had people offended by things that I've said.
At a show?
At a show, online, or whatever, Like
what have they said to you, or how did you respond?
I mean, my nail salon joke, for one, like that's the most classic bit, and most people love it, but there are some people who don't like it, and I still get hate mail and things like that every now and then. But yeah, it's just, comedy is so subjective, so it's really hard to say like what is you taking a comedic stand and what is you crossing the line and what is going to be widely accepted and what is going to be widely rejected. Like, you never know. Like, all of a sudden, like, people can support you and then the next day they don't. And it's like, I remember following this story online of this girl who, she wasn't a comedian. She was just like a little social media blogger. And her and her fiance were sitting on the plane, and there was two people in front of them. And they got one of the persons to switch seats with them, right? And so her and her fiance are like, oh, what if this girl's husband ends up walking on, right? What if she ends up meeting the love of her life, right? Well, the guy that walks on ends up being a really good looking guy. And so they're like, oh my gosh, what if they end up hooking up, right? So the whole flight, they're tweeting about it and showing pictures of like, oh, their elbows are touching now, and like just kind of making up this pretend love story. And it goes viral, and people are following along and replying to her being like, oh my gosh, I am so here for this story, because they're kind of making up their own things like, I think they just followed each other on Instagram. Whatever. And so it ended up being this big, huge thing that everybody was loving and like, oh, this is such a funny little, because she was funny while she was talking about it. This is a funny little story. Well, I guess what happened, the internet, as the internet does, ended up finding that girl. And like there was trolls just like trolling that girl. They figured out who they were, and that girl ended up having to like shut down all her social media. Jeez. She didn't want to be known, and like it was a really traumatic thing for her. But the girl who was like making up this pretend love story was not meaning anything like hateful, or she was not trying to abuse this woman's privacy. She never once showed her face or anything. But all of a sudden, everybody who was like watching this go down and was like, this is so funny, all of a sudden everyone in the world turns on her, is like, how dare you abuse that woman's privacy?
Everyone's just searching for something to be offended by.
Over 2 minutes, all of a sudden, she was like hundreds of thousands of followers, and then every news article about her and just abusing people's privacy, and like no one can like be private, and you can't just enjoy yourself on a flight anymore. And she got tore down immediately, and I'm like, wow, she's not even a comic. She was just some girl who's being funny and made up this love story that everyone loved until they didn't, and then everyone hated her. And it was like, wow, that's you never know. You can do something and everybody's liking it, and all of a sudden they don't like it.
But as a comic, you've been toughened up by bombing, having jokes be something that people are offended by. It's probably toughened you up as a person. You can probably take certain things, criticisms.
Yes and no. I mean, yes, but it still affects me. Like, I don't ever want to offend anyone. I know people are going to be offended by anything I say, whether it's about an ethnicity, whether it's about a man or a woman. And I recently had widows upset with me because I do a new joke about my biggest fear being that my husband dies, and I go into this imagination setting of when it happens, and I've had widows message me very offended. So it's like, I can't talk about anything. I'm gonna offend someone.
Well, but you know what? Once you accept that, it's the comedian's journey.
It
and
is.
I think that stand-up comedy is the last vestige of free speech. I have a theory about because I love like MMA and like some sports that would be illegal if you do it on the street to somebody. Mm-hmm. And I like offensive jokes and weird music and obscure stuff. I think that art and sport are two places where we can vent these dark thoughts, ideas in a funny way or maybe a competitive way, so that we're not, because you can't go up to somebody on the street and start saying offensive jokes about their ethnicity. But if you go up on a stand-up stage, it's like, this is kind of a safe space for unsafe things. I think that's what the comedy stage should be.
I think it used to be that.
Ooh.
I think now it's like, do you also want a TV show?
Oh, man.
Because do you think one of these network is going to back you up when you're saying racially charged things or divisive things? Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like, it's if that's all you want to do is tell jokes and not worry about selling tickets.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then, yeah, do whatever you want, But as long as you need people to buy tickets to your show, and you need people to tune in to watch you every Thursday at 8 p.m., you have to kind of play the game.
If you say something and you feel that didn't go over well and it was offensive, just tag it with Hot Pocket. That's what Jim Gaffigan does.
Okay.
I think it works for him.